Good morning, everybody. Just want to thank you for joining us today for our webinar on cultivating emotional intelligence. My name is Alex Terlecki. I'm with the Colorado Special Districts Pool. And today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and which describes the ability to understand one's own feeling. It also provides great insight on how emotion influences motivation and behavior. In this webinar, you'll gain an understanding of self-management and self-awareness in order to give you better insight and control over your actions and emotions. Today, our presenter is Sylvette Wake from CPS HR Consulting, one of our partners here at the CSD Pool. Sylvette is the founder of Wake Up Training, Coaching, and Strategic Planning. She is committed to helping people develop their strengths and unlock their potential, creating safe spaces for learning and growth. Sylvette completed a master's degree in management and leadership from Webster University and became the official employed spousal unit, doing stints with various California and state agencies prior to becoming an independent consultant. She's also a certified practitioner and facilitator in Conversations Worth Having, as well as a certified executive life and strengths finder coach. We're thrilled to have her back with us today to present on today's webinar. A few housekeeping items that I wanted to discuss first before we get started. We are recording today's session, so if you need to step away or have any technical difficulties, don't worry, we'll be sending a copy of this presentation out in the future, just after it's over. And again, if there's any issues I see coming through the chat box about audio problems, it may be localized to your own device, so I recommend just signing out and logging back in case you're running into technical issues. Again, we will send out a link to this, so if you have any issues and have to step away, we've got you covered. We will be providing a PDF version of today's slides available to download in the files box after the conclusion of the webinar, so you can keep an eye on that files box above the chat box, and that will pop in at the end of the session. If you have any questions today, go ahead and use that chat box. This is going to be an audio-only webinar. We're not going to open up any rights for our attendees to be talking. So if you have questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat box as we go through. We'll also pause at the end for any questions there as well. We have a couple polls today that we'll introduce on the screen at the appropriate time, so we'd love some participation. And I think that covers all of our bases. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Sylvette. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex, and thank you for coordinating today's event and getting us up and running. Very much appreciate it. And just a quick note, Alex, I'm not sure if you're able to help Elaine. She was having trouble hearing, so I just put a quick note to her in the chat. So perhaps if you can give her a hand with that, that would be wonderful. I didn't know if you'd had a chance to see it just yet. So yeah, I'm Sylvette. Good morning, welcome, and so glad you're all here. I'm located here in, as you can tell by my accent, of course, the Cosmopolitan Center of the Universe, which is just actually a little sleepy town in Northern California called Vacaville. So let us get started, and we are going to head into cultivating emotional intelligence. And if you would like to put in the chat, where would you most like to go barefoot in the sand? So we're headed into summer. I know Alex just had fun in Florida last week. But where would you most like to go barefoot in the sand? So if you'd like to go ahead, put that in the chat. Oh, Lisa, Bahamas. Oh, Virgin Islands for you, Donna. Hawaii for Joan. Woohoo! Oh my gosh, Bali, Destin, Cayman, Bora Bora, Mexico. It sounds like it's anywhere but in Colorado at the moment. That's heading out to the beaches. Bermuda coming in. Beautiful. Hawaii for you as well, Joe. Excellent. And you know what? And I thought this was a great image as well, just to sort of get us into that beach mind, right? Jamaica near me. Another one, Hawaii. All right. Well, I'll keep an eye out on those, and as we go through, I'll just call up a couple more as they come in. All right. So here we go. Emotional intelligence then is, these are the outcomes that we're going to be looking at for today. I'll let you just read those for yourselves. Charlotte, no, we're not having cameras on today. Just saw your note there in the chat. So, okay. All right, so those are our objectives, and that folds out into this agenda. We'll have an overall sort of introduction, and then we'll look at some some simple tools that you can use for developing emotional intelligence skills. And so for our introduction, here's what we'll take a look at: the definition, the benefits, the power of emotional intelligence, and the business case. All right, so in the chat, if you would, what are the traits of the person who brought out the worst in you? What are the traits of the person that brought out the worst in you? Pop those in the chat if you would. Kelly, thank you for getting us started. Selfishness, disrespect. Okay. Hypocritical, angry, stubborn, impatient, someone who talks over you, absolutely. Condescending, aggressive, talk negatively about others. Just mean, and we've got twice Andy and Brooke coming in with the entitlement here, talking down to you. Exactly right. So we get the sense. So enough of that negative energy. Let's flip it over to the flip side here, which is, what are the traits of the person who brought out the best in you? What are those traits of the person that brought out the best in you? Let's spiral the energy back up. They were supportive, calm. Donna and Brooke, thanks for getting us started. Kindness. Oh, Kelly as well. I see your note there. Encouragement, patience, funny, humble, understanding, happy and smiling. We've got repetition of encouraging here as well. Listened actively, not to respond. Joe, thanks for the reminder there, right? Active listening or empathic listening. Barbara echoing that. All right, so those traits then of the first lot were probably those folks, perhaps not highly emotionally intelligent. And of course, the traits of the person brought out the best in you, there's a great likelihood those folks had a higher degree of emotional intelligence. So we're getting a sense of what that looks like in an individual. And so here is the definition, and I'll let you read this for yourselves. And notice it's understanding emotions in yourself and others, and then using that awareness to manage your behavior. And this photo is up here. I'm a very amateur photographer. And when I did one of my first classes, I learned you're supposed to try and look or create a photograph that has replicating shapes. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at this thing. It's got triangles and it's got parallel lines and all sorts of things. And I imagined what was the degree of emotional intelligence it took between those two dancers, the choreographer, the photographer, to get to this pose. So it took that deep understanding to help create this. Anyway, I just thought that was a fun photo to have as our definition. This is the framework for emotional intelligence as per Daniel Goleman, and he is the author of the book Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. And we see the 4 dimensions, the foundation stone, self-awareness. This is what I see, and it's a personal competence. And when we understand what's going on within us, then we can manage those, manage our behaviors. And then if we go down to social awareness, this is what I see in others. And then the social skills is where we bring them all together to manage our conversations and conflict and that sort of thing, our interpersonal relationships. Emotional intelligence can be learned, but it does take practice, thanks. But the learning happens because of the neuroplasticity of the brain. So what this means is if we practice a little at a time, the neurons actually restructure themselves. So if you're interested in any of the things that we're talking about today, oh, you know, I want to practice that, it can be learned. And just a quick note, we've got EQ here, Q referring to quotient. So you can, there's a book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. You can go to, if you purchase the book, you can actually do the assessment. There's a code to the assessment, and you can do that. And you can get your emotional intelligence quotient. We're referring it today as emotional intelligence. So given the little bit that we know about it in the chat, what do you think are some of the benefits then of being emotionally intelligent? Oh, Lisa, it's actually, it is, if you buy the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and the code is at the back, I believe. And you know what? I will afterwards. I'll just double check to make sure that they're still running it in that, and then I'll send a note to Alex. But thanks very much, Lisa. That was for you. So benefits: inspirational leader, better communication, better understanding, connection, harmonious and productive relationships. We don't take things as personally, right, Jenny? Absolutely. And Daniela also coming in, better relationships, beautiful. And understanding, thank you, Charlotte. So we know then that this thing is good, but for us and for others, but sometimes it's a little bit hard, right? But anyway, so this sort of sums it all up. We have effective relationships, we're happier at work and at home, and there's less stress. It's just less stressful. Joe, I see you put in there collaborative working as well. Thank you. And so hopefully we might look like this person. Okay, mine is the sticky note on the forehead. But in the workplace, then hopefully we can be a little bit happier, or as happy, if not more happy than we already are. Let's take a look at the power of emotional intelligence. It manages life, and of course, that subset of life, relationships. So this is called a picture unwrap. It's a reverse jigsaw. So as soon as you know what it is, pop it in the chat. As soon as you know what this might be, put your thoughts in the chat. Any ideas? There we go. Thanks for getting us started, Elaine. Underwater, a cave. Yes. And we've got coral. There we go. All right. And we've got the surfers up here as well. Thanks very much for putting your thoughts there. So quick story here. Bud Connor was a surfer, is a surfer. And he went down to the beach the year 2017. He went down to the beach and he arrived there to see children in the water, the sun sparkling on the waves. So he jumped on his surfboard and he paddled out to wait for a big wave. And then while he was there, he felt a presence. And he looked over his shoulder and he saw a dorsal fin of, he thought it was a dolphin, but instead it was a, pop it in the chat. There we go. Listen, Jenny, Sarah, yes. And you know, he was doing exactly what you're doing right now, as he heard that music, right? Anyway, he froze on the surfboard. And the shark came in, fortunately, it didn't bite him, but knocked him off the surfboard. And he fell in the water. And it took a little while, but then he realized he could do something about the situation. And he turned the surfboard, and when the shark came in again, he jabbed the surfboard at the shark's snout. And then he hopped back up onto the surfboard. He hopped up. You notice how I said he just hopped up onto that surfboard. And then he started paddling furiously for shore. And then he saw the children in the water, and he started calling out to let folks know there was a shark. And in the meantime, the lifeguards had seen what was happening too and started calling for everyone to come out of the water. So we know Bud made it back safely. All right. So why is this interesting to us for emotional intelligence? Well, emotional intelligence handles life. It handles our decision making. It drives our decision making. It drives our motivation. And by golly, you know, Bud was highly motivated to get back to shore. But let's take a little bit, a deeper dive in the framework of emotional intelligence. So at some point, then he realized that he was angry. So this is self-awareness. And then at this point, he had a choice and he could do something about the situation. So he decided to fight off the shark and paddle to shore. So that's self-management. He then saw the children in the water and he anticipated that fear and panic. So that's social awareness. And then he called out to let them know there was a shark. And so this is actually doing something with the recognition and awareness that he has. So emotional intelligence, then, it's more than just being able to communicate and manage our emotions when we're with others. It's so much more than that. It drives decision-making and, of course, motivation. And so when Bud was stuck in the water there for a little bit and up on the board and couldn't move, the lower part of the brain around the ear here is the old brain, the reptilian brain. And this is what kicks into action when we go into that fight or flight mode. And it is actually regulated by the amygdala, which is located just above the ear. Now, if we can wait a certain amount of time, we can let that stimulus travel to the red part of the brain. That's the rational part of the brain. And then we can choose how we're going to respond. And it's going to depend, obviously, on the situation. But in the chat, how long do you think it takes then for that stimulus to travel from that reptilian brain where we go into fight or flight and up to the rational brain where we can choose our response? How long do you think that might take? I've got a couple of ideas here. Lisa, starting us off with 10 seconds, a few seconds, 5, 3. You're all in the ballpark. Absolutely. I think, Kelly, you're closer there. It's actually, here we go. It's actually 6 seconds. Lots and lots of research around it, 6 seconds. So if you're in a conversation and someone says or does something that you have an emotional reaction to, if you can just take a deep breath and pause for 6 seconds, you can hopefully respond instead of reacting to that situation. So we don't know Bud's timing exactly, but I'm hoping it was close to 6 seconds before he managed to get back up on that board and get back to shore. So emotional intelligence also then managing relationships. So if we have a similar example, so if a colleague states that you're late with a project, and maybe they're very impatient or they're rude or they're brusque, you could react, or you could wait that 6 seconds, check your emotions, choose to respond instead of reacting, use empathy and empathic listening to get a better understanding of what's going on. And then finally, you pull all those 3 together to help you talk with the individual and either come to a solution or to understanding. And remembering that the definition of communication is that both parties understand each other. So when we're using emotional intelligence to guide our conversation, the goal then is to reach understanding. And here are some of the ways that emotional intelligence appears in the workplace. So I'll let you just read this for yourselves. Those are ways then that we see emotional intelligence in the workplace. And don't worry, don't feel as though you have to type all of these down. We will be putting the slides in the chat at the end. And if we look at then the business case for emotional intelligence, so here we go. So Alex, want to try the polls? Oh, there it is. Thank you very much. So if you'd like to go ahead and do the poll, what percentage of career success do you think is due to emotional intelligence? All right. So we've got, it looks like we're swirling between 59 and 75. And so, Alex, if you'd like to end the poll and broadcast the result. Okay, survey says, there we go. So we've got that, yeah, most of us thinking 75. Survey says, though, it is actually, oops, okay, I see where the answer is. It's actually 59. It was actually 59. So about just under 2/3. So let's go to the next poll question. Alex, if you wouldn't mind. What percentage of careers are derailed because of a lack of emotional competencies, including an inability to handle interpersonal problems? All right, looks like we're nearly evenly split between 48 and 75. We're heading down. Oh, this is very exciting. We're neck and neck at 48 and 75. Okay, let's close that one out, Alex. Thank you. Okay, and then our answer is oops, there it is, 75%. It is 75%. So if a career is going to go off the rails, it's most likely not because we're not very good with the technical component or that needs our IQ. It's the emotional intelligence, that we're not able to interact with others in a way that is conducive to providing the outcomes that we're looking for. All right. So that was kind of fun. Thank you for running those, Alex, and also for putting those together. Appreciate it. And so if you'll go ahead and read this for yourself, this is by Daniel Goleman. All right, so there you have it from the master of emotional intelligence himself. So, headed into then our introduction, sorry, our tools. We've done the introduction. Heading into the tools, we'll start off with self-awareness. All right, so self-awareness, then the foundation stone. And we'll start off with a quote, "Know thyself." This is by Socrates. And this truly is sort of the foundational piece of emotional intelligence, really understanding what sets us off, right? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And we had, when I was working for a state agency here in California, there was the CEO would come in when we did onboarding and new supervisor training. And the very first words out of his mouth were, "If you're going to be successful here at this agency, you've really got to know yourself." And quoting Socrates here, he said, "You've got to know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and understand what sets you off, what pushes your buttons, so you can anticipate these things and then manage them ahead of time." So self-awareness then is being aware of your emotions. And we're going to take a look at a practice here, which is a cool tool, if I may say so myself. And it's called the emotional audit. So if we have that simple thing that we talked about earlier, that example, someone's rude or brusque, impatient, you're late with the report. You might go through, well, what am I thinking? That's not true. It's not my fault. Or you might think, well, did I just misunderstand? And then what am I feeling? Am I angry? Am I insulted? Perhaps I'm just embarrassed. How am I getting in my own way? Is it my ego? Is it I need to be right? Was I in too much of a hurry and I didn't listen? Did I make assumptions about this person's intent? And what do I really want? Do I want to make sure the relationship's in place and the project's completed? And what do I need to do differently? Do I need to clarify? Do I need to apologize? Do I need to shift my mindset? And so this is a fabulous tool then to just help you make that space. So if you can make that space, you can just think this through in just a couple of seconds even, and prepare yourself then to better have that discussion. And so I learned this when I was doing my life coaching course. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I'd had this so many years ago. It was so practical. So for yourselves, I'll just give you a minute here for yourselves. If you'd like to think of a recent or current event, or even something that's coming up for you in the future, and then just apply the emotional audit to it. All right, so think of an event in your life and just apply the emotional audit. And I'll put this up so you can just use this as a reference. And so normally I just give you a minute, just jot a couple of ideas down, and then we'll group in about, I don't know, about a minute and a half. I'll just put a timer on. So go ahead and try that out if you like. Okay. And again, you could do a little bit deeper dive afterwards, after the session, if you like. But you can also use this if you've got something coming up for you in the future that you might be nervous about, right? And you can maybe a presentation or a promotion, a conversation that you have to have. But it can also be something that's very exciting for you. So it's just a nice way of really trying to understand what's going on. All right. So thanks for trying that out. And on we go. The next one, self-management. Self-management. So this is what I do, how I behave based on that self-awareness. So our quote here then, mastering others is strength, mastering yourself is true power, from Lao Tzu. And so our definition, I'll let you read that for yourselves. And the practice here is all around making a choice. And so between stimulus and response, there is a, whoop, isn't that fun? Let's do that again. That was so fun. Clearly I don't get out enough, right? All right. So between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our freedom and power to choose how we're going to respond. And so that quote actually comes from Viktor Frankl. We'll learn about him in a moment. But chat in the ways, what are the ways that you make that space so that you can actually choose your alternate response? So go ahead, put those in the chat if you would. Letitia, thank you for getting us started. Breathe. Pause 4 seconds before speaking. Walk away. Thanks, Donna and Jenny. Smile. Anne, wonderful. Take a sip of water. Yes. Walk away from the frustrating environment, but then return when you've settled down. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Turn cameras off in a meeting for a few minutes and get grounded. Oh, Joe, thanks for reminding us about that. And Joe, if you get a minute and you'd like to just put the rest of that in, that would be wonderful. If others might like to use it. But it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear. And then if you can do the 3, 2, 1, I haven't got it on the top of my head right now. But if you'd like to, that would be great. Lee, thank you. Understand the child in them. Fantastic. Thank you all very, very much. These are wonderful, wonderful. And so let's move into Viktor Frankl. So remember, Viktor is, he is the founder, or he created that saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our freedom to choose. So Viktor was in a concentration camp during World War II, and sadly, he was the only member of his family to make it out. And so one day he was taken away to the medical facility. He was stripped, and the medical staff there performed all sorts of unspeakable experiments on his body. And he realized at that lowest point of humanity that the one thing they did not have control over was his mind. And so he chose to think about his future as a professor of psychiatry at the university. He imagined his students going on to change the world and so on. And he wrote the book afterwards called Man's Search for Meaning. All right, so well worth reading if you'd like to read that, Man's Search for Meaning. Now, Stephen Covey tells this story in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he describes how one day he was in a large auditorium, and he was describing this story, and in the middle of it, a woman stood up and she started shouting and in the middle of his lecture. And so afterwards, he went over and talked to her, and he said, "Gosh, you got really excited there. What was going on for you?" And she said, "Well, I am the nurse to a really terrible old man, and I and the other nurses do things for him. He throws things at us. And for you to stand there and say that I have a choice in how I think about these things, well, that was the most ludicrous thing I'd ever heard." But then I started thinking, she said, and I realized you were right. And that's when I got so excited. I realized you were right. And accompanying this, there is a video, first of the nurse giving the old man a breakfast tray that he throws at her, and then she cries. And then at the end, she presents of the video, she gives him a bouquet of flowers. He throws them at her, and she simply smiles. And so I think this really comes back to this notion that we can choose our response. And also we are not defined, another side note, we are not defined by our brain, because we can actually watch our brain in action. That sounds a little bit whoop, right? But if you take a moment and you just sit, close your eyes, breathe, you can actually watch your brain formulating its thoughts. And so this is how we can then go in and choose our thoughts and choose how we're going to respond. So when it comes to choices, then we want to be mindful when we are triggered, and we can choose our response, and we want to respond, don't react. We need to make that space that you've mentioned already. And just a word about being triggered. When I say the thing that you did triggered me, what happens for the other person? You triggered me. What happens? They become defensive, exactly, right? They feel offended. It sounds like blame. There we go. They go into denial. Thank you. Hey, and Joe, thank you for putting in the other 3 things in there. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. All right. So when we say that you triggered me, that puts the blame on the other person. So we have to be mindful of we are having an emotional reaction over which we have control, because we can make that choice. Jenny putting in, they didn't mean to trigger you, so it doesn't feel good. Exactly, right? Because that wasn't their intention, right? Or maybe it was. So the second is with our thinking. We can choose our thinking, and we can reframe to the positive. So let's take the first of these for triggers. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might get angry, or honk the horn. I might be angry for the rest of the day. What would be an alternate response? Pop that in the chat. Someone cuts you off. What might be an alternate response? Lee, getting us started. Thank you. You might swear. Yeah, you might let it go. Right, there's that, what's that Disney movie with the song Let It Go? I'm not going to sing it for you, because I know you'll all just turn the webinar off. Let it go. Forgiveness. Maybe they're desperate for the loo, says Joe. Thank you. Be grateful they didn't cause an accident. Tell yourself they're in a hurry. Smile and wave. Oh, there it is, Jenny, the movie, Frozen. And Letitia, we've got Smile and Wave, right? So that's that other Disney movie with the penguins. Smile and wave, smile and wave. I think that's Madagascar. You took your cue from your granddaughter and just say, really? Perhaps as a pregnant lady on labor on the way to the hospital. Yeah. All right. There we go. Okay. So that's the alternate response. They're having a worse day than you are. Exactly right. So one of the other things to think about, or for us to think about, is what is your trigger? What is your usual response? And then what is an alternate response for you? What stops you from choosing that alternate response? So the last questions then are sort of coaching questions you have to ask yourself. And so, my trigger is sort of disrespect from my kids when they were teenagers. They're in their 20s now, so we don't see that very much. Okay, not at all. And then I could go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. Yes. And my alternate response as well is I have to walk away. I had to walk away. So we're not going to do this now, but I do encourage you to think about what is it that sets you off, and what is your reaction, and what could be an alternate response. All right. So think about that one, perhaps when you head in for lunch a little bit later on. Next stop is choosing our thinking. And so when we have negative thoughts, we can easily spiral down so things become more negative. And so ideally what we want to do is reframe to the positive. So when we have negative self-talk, what else happens? I said that you can spiral down, but just put in the chat, what happens if we have that negative self-talk that's going on? There we go. We can sink even further down into depression. Thank you, Julie. We're always doubting ourselves. It turns to anger, lack of tolerance. Yep. Lee, that's a wonderful visual, right? Our shoulders just drop. Yeah, we lose confidence, lowered self-esteem. We get stuck, don't take action. It's stressful. Thank you very, very much for putting those thoughts in. All right, so, and see, Jenny and Letitia are typing up. We'll pull those up as well. You feel worse, you second guess yourselves, and you can get sick due to the stress. Exactly. Rumination. Yeah. So we go down a rabbit hole, right? And there we stay. And so I couldn't find a circular rabbit hole, so I could only find a square one. So, but you get the idea. We go down that rabbit hole, and we keep going down, 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 and it's hard to come back up. But on the other hand, sorry, I just want to explain this as well. This thought is from Rick Hansen. Highly recommend his philosophy. But he says that negativity is like Velcro. And so it gloms onto the brain, and it's so easy to stay there. And on the other hand, positivity is like a non-stick frying pan. So we might be thinking positively, but that thought can quickly swirl around and we lose it, and we're back to thinking negatively. And the person I just mentioned, I'll put this in the chat, is Rick Hansen. And you can check out his website if you like, rickhansen.net. And he is actually the world's leading authority on changing your brain for the good. Exciting stuff if you're interested in reading about that. All right, so negativity like Velcro, positivity like a non-stick frying pan. So what we'll do here is just a few things on reframing to the positive. So here's our first one. So it's 113 degrees outside. I hate the heat. Now, I wrote this last summer when it was 113 here in Vacaville. So in the chat, reframe that to the positive, would you? How might you think about that differently? Jenny getting us started. At least it's not 120. The air conditioning feels so good. Thank you, Jenny. Now I get it. Lisa, you can have fun summer activities like swimming. Please, your feet aren't cold, Joe. A great day for a swim. And it's a dry heat. There we are. It's not snowing. You're in Ohio, Michelle. It's better than snow. And you hate being cold anyway. These are wonderful. Annette, time for a cool shower. Thank you so much. All right. So there we go. I put, oh, what did I do? Let me see. It's coming up. I can scan my 10,000 photos. So I started, I got like 100 done. I thought, no, I've got to do something different. All right, here's another one. Sergio walked by and totally ignored me. Sergio walked by and totally ignored me. How can we reframe that? He's in a world of his own. Thank goodness. I wasn't in the mood to talk to him. He's probably thinking about what gift he's going to buy me. You guys are so funny. He must be headed to a meeting. There we go. Oops, and I hear a little bit of background noise. Alex, are you able to mute that one? There we go. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And so, yep, I put, what did I put? Here we go. He's got something on his mind. I wonder if he's okay. And finally here, I missed an important deadline. I am so, how can we reframe that? Annette, I saw your last one there, bless him. Yeah. I'll still live, busy but grateful for a job. Excited to get it to the finish line. There you go. Maybe I should ask for help. Glad no one noticed. These are fabulous. Absolutely. Thank you. And for me, when I make a mistake now, and believe me, there are many, I really try and flip it to, okay, how can I see this as an opportunity, right? What's the lesson learned here? It's not the end of the world. Motivated to do a better job on the final outcome. All right. Glad nobody noticed, Letitia. I'm grateful for the opportunity to rethink your time management. These are really fabulous. Thank you. And so just a note here as well on this one about judgment. So when we judge others and judge ourselves, we're actually at that time stress hormones soar through the body when we're in that place of judgment. And so it's a useful thing, if possible, is when you notice yourself judging yourself or others, to perhaps imagine that that judgment is an entity. And so for me, I'll notice the judge going up and I go, judge, nah, be gone. Judge, be gone. It sounds like a bug be gone, right? Like a spray. So judge, be gone. And then look at the situation with discernment. And discernment is using our deep insights and inner wisdom to review a situation. So you're looking at things factually. But the moment we start judging others, we're placing blame. And when the same for ourselves, if we're being critical about ourselves, we're blaming ourselves. And with that comes those stress hormones. So again, we can't sometimes ignore things that go wrong, but can you look at them with, and there's that word again, discernment, all right? So we're removing the blame factor and just looking at the facts. Jenny noting, interesting, it's so much more difficult to come up with a response to this one when we're judging ourselves versus others or the heat. Thank you very much for that insight, Jenny. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And remember, we are kinder to others than we are to ourselves most often. And so it's so important to be able to take this mental self-care and try and stop judging ourselves. So thank you very much, everyone. Finally, if we can also just stop taking ourselves quite so seriously, one of my favorite national days of the year is September 19th, which is Talk Like a Pirate Day. And so for your edification, all know Talk Like a Pirate. So here we go. And what's a pirate's favorite letter? We've got R, we've got I, we've got more R. Well, you think it'd be the R, but it's the C he loves so much. But listen, I'm going to also have to put in your eye there, right? It's the eye he loves the most. All right, moving right along. So trying to stop taking ourselves quite so seriously, something I have to remind myself of quite often too. All right, that was self-management into social awareness, Hey, and if you have any questions at any time, do just pop them in the chat. I'm going to keep moving through so we can go through the slides, but happy to address the questions at the end, or we'll capture them and I can send an email via Alex. So if you've got questions, of course, do pop those in the chat. All right, social awareness, so here we go. And this quote, "Everyone is fighting a battle we know nothing about. Be kind always," by Ian McLaren. Apparently, Pliny and Plato might have said something along these lines too. But essentially, this is the quote that I really have in my back pocket. If I'm in every one of those situations where you can tell the conversation might not be going as well as you'd like, this is what comes up for me. Everyone is fighting a battle, or I'll just say this person is fighting a battle I don't know anything about. I need to be kind, because we really don't know what experiences this person has had in life that may be leading them to behave in the way that they are currently. Right? And so for our empathy, for our definition here, we've actually got the definition of empathy, and I'll let you read that for yourself. Okay. And the goal here is to really try and listen and respond empathically. And so empathic listening is simply paying attention to the other person with empathy, i.e. trying to understand what's going on. And Stephen Covey quote here, "Seek first to understand before being understood," is a beautiful way to manage that empathic listening. And so our 4 steps to empathy, we've got listen, really listen, and we're listening for that emotional experience and try to understand it. And then the next one, try and connect. So linking the experience to that you, or linking what you're hearing and perhaps seeing, if cameras are on, to the experience you might have had. And it could be about being sad or being upset or whatever else it could be. And then you communicate it back. That sounds really upsetting. So it's a very simple thing, but it's actually, I find this is the step that I forget to do the most. It sounds like you're really excited. It sounds like you're really frustrated about that. And just by doing that, the person feels more heard. But of course, we've got to pause long enough to really let them get everything off their chest so that you can really understand what's going on. And then the final one is then to ask a question. And this also helps you build your 6 seconds, by the by, right? And so some questions, my favorite questions are: what concerns you most? What's most important to you? What have you tried already? And then also, when we're listening, oftentimes we want to fix things for other people. So it's useful to ask as well, would you like some insight from me? Because you know what? They might just want to vent. Right? So empathic listening then is, it's a little bit more than active listening. Active listening, we are paying attention, we might be taking notes, we're repeating back what we're saying. But the empathic part is really trying to understand the emotion. And when we're able to do that, we ourselves can handle that conversation in a very different way. So I'm going to put these back up and then just put in the chat, which of these do you do already? All right, which of these sort of things, which components do you do already? And which do you think you would like to add to your toolkit? So just pop that in the chat. Are you a really good listener? Are you able to do that connecting? Do you communicate it back? That's validating. Do you have a great question? And if you've got a great question, put that in the chat as well. Lisa, thanks for getting us started. You listen. Connecting is easiest for you, Lisa. Mm-hmm. Joe, you listen and ask questions. You don't always link it. Fabulous. Could be better asking question at the end. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah. Letitia as well, the linking. And also for Barbara and Rita and Lee, asking the right questions. All right, so bear this in mind, right? And maybe this going forward, if there's one small change you want to make in your interpersonal skills, maybe it's one of these steps that you've mentioned right here. Oh, what if you are right and they don't accept the truth? Oh, that is a great question. Let me just check. Oh, well, we have a moment. Let's just take that. And so I think a lot depends on if this is policy and legislation and there's black and white, there's oftentimes gray area there, then of course, you can provide the evidence for that. However, if this is sort of a difference of opinion or a need of one another isn't being met, then we really have to take a step back and perhaps do that emotional audit and say, okay, how am I getting in my own way? And one of those things is we have to be mindful of, is it my need to be right? Also, along with this, then, is that when we're talking with others, except when it's policy and legislation, pretty much the other person is always 10% right. And we've got to find what it is that they're 10% right about us and hear that and acknowledge it. So this goes into our conflict resolution language as well. It's like, I understand that you think that the report should be written this way with this phrasing, and I can see you're correcting that, and then you would add on your extra piece. But the important part is to determine, do I want to be right or do I want the relationship to be able to continue? So that's sort of that sticking point, right? And Joe putting in, I use observations to back up what I'm saying where there's a challenging conversation. It could be better about communicating it back. Oh, Bria, I see it. That was referencing that. And we have to look for the bit where they are right, even if it is just 10%. Exactly. Thank you, Letitia. Find that piece because they know that you've heard them, and they feel like they're a part of the conversation. Otherwise, it just becomes a debate. I'm telling my point, you're telling your point, and we can just go to and fro. But what we're really searching for is dialogue, and dialogue is where we're listening to understand, and then we're trying to come up with options together on how we're going to move forward. All right. So wonderful question, Lee. Thank you very much. All right. So here we are, social skills. So social skills, essentially, we've got our quote here. The way to do is to be. It's a way of being. And then it's really how you use the first three emotional intelligence skills to manage your interactions with other people. So we don't have any extra practices here. But one of the things to remember is that emotional intelligence, then, we know how it manages life, it manages our relationships. It also manages those communication. When we're in a conflict situation, is can we step back far enough, perhaps do the emotional audit and review what is it that we really want out of this conversation. And if it's my need to be right is being met, well, then we're not going to get very far. If my ego's involved, so this is why that emotional audit's so good. Is my ego involved here? And that's often the same case for me, as is the need to be right, because I'm like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, and I'm always right. My husband sometimes disagrees. I'm not sure why. So essentially, we're using those social skills then to manage our interactions with others. So that brings us to the end of our session. We did a quick swim through the definition, the benefits, the business case, and the power of emotional intelligence. And that is a true story about Bud Connor. And it's actually in that book, the Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And then tools to develop your emotional intelligence skills. we looked at, we didn't actually do some mindfulness, and that's just a reminder to me. Practicing mindfulness is wonderful for our self-awareness. Self-management, making that space to choose, social awareness, the empathic listening, and then the social skills, putting all those pieces together. And so on that note, here are some things that you can try: the emotional audit, making the space. Remember, there was the activity thinking about your trigger and what would your alternate response be. And then we also had empathic listening. And so what are you most excited to try? Put in the chat. Anything you're excited to try that we looked at? And I'll just put the list back up again. The emotional audit, Joan. Mm-hmm. Making the space. Managing the triggers. A lot of us making the space. 3, 4, 5 of us, yeah. It's so simple, but when we have that emotional reactions, it's a bit challenging to do sometimes. Search for that 10%. Thanks, Lee. Emotional audit and linking after listening. Thanks, Letitia, on that one. And the empathic listening in it. Wonderful. Managing triggers. And pray. And, John, praying as well as something that you can do in that space, right? That 6 seconds space. Wonderful thing there. All right. Validate emotions. Give grace to people who cut you off on the highway, Bray. All right. So thank you all very, very much indeed. Lee also putting in 6 seconds, and Guadalupe, the emotional audit. So on that note, Alex, will you put this? You'll send the survey out. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I'll send a survey out. We'll put that in the email that goes out to everybody here, along with the recording. And we can go ahead and also put the handout right now. I'll throw that into our files box as well. Let me go ahead and grab that for everybody.
All right. So thank you all very, very much for being here. And Alex, thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sylvette. This was an excellent session. Again, go ahead and check out the files box above the chat box. That'll allow you to download the slides today in order to share them. These are great tools, a great session for supervisors and management to talk about with staff. At the same time, it's great for staff members, looking to just understand their emotional intelligence a little bit better. So I want to, again, thank Sylvette for being here today. I also want to thank CPS HR Consulting, our partner here at the Colorado Special Districts Pool, for putting on this webinar with us. I just want to remind our Colorado Special Districts members that CPS HR is one of our services that we offer to pool members. They offer HR consulting for various needs, such as job posting guidelines, candidate screening, policy review, and our members are eligible for up to 10 hours of no-cost human resources consulting per year. After that, you then attain special rates and prices. So if you are a member and are interested in learning more about that, you can go ahead and head over to our website with all the details there to get started. So if there aren't any other questions coming through today, I just want to again, thanks, Sylvette. This is an excellent session. Just really appreciate you being here again this year and putting this on.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. And have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for being here, and we'll be sending out the recording shortly.